asking our guest who is right on the phone, patobiene. Pat, thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Flora, for having me, and good afternoon to our viewers.
Good afternoon to you too.
Yes.
Okay, Vice President has actually weighed into the issue of the hashtag Endsars Memorial Protest. I think this is a good one if you ask me. This is actually a good one for us to have the Vice President to weigh into the hashtag Endsars Memorial Protest. But the President is saying that youth should shun these protests. What do you have to say about this?
Well, what I have to say may not be different from what is running through the mind of many Nigerians who believe in a democratic Nigeria. That is to say, it is not enough to be reactionary, and that's one unfortunate thing that has been happening to the Nigerian political elites. The position of the federal government now, led by the vice president, also goes to reveal what sometime the great sage Gani Fawami once propounded, that it is illegal to be lawful in a lawless society. In other words, the implication to the attitude of the government towards those who are planning this protest is that, on one hand, they want the citizens to demonstrate good conduct, to show that they believe in the government, they trust in the government. When the citizens try to demonstrate this, on the part of the government, wherein you're looking at a few people in authority, tend not to keep their own side of that bargain, that aspect of the law, a public order, which is, there needs to be some level of credibility. There needs to be some level of sincerity flowing from the part of government, those in authority. What am I saying in effect? We all are witnesses that shortly after the last year, October 20th incident, Lekki Tollgate, the panels were set up by the government as a way to assuage, frayed nerves and the rising tension then. And the next thing, there was a forth and back accusations of who led the military to carry out the killings, and we saw how the Lagos State Governor blames were shifted. Of course, Flora, you should recall that if you look at the 99 Constitution as amended, the president is the only one that is addressed as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And in that case, we saw a situation where the army claimed that they got permission from the state governor. That in itself is unlawful. Is unconstitutional. Yeah. Until now, the public, the desperate citizens who have demonstrated their own side by obeying and keeping faith with the panel that was set up, till as we speak, cannot see sincerity or credibility on the part of the government to have perhaps begin to punish some people where necessary, following all that transpired and the panel that was set up. So when you take it from that angle, or when you take that into consideration, how do you expect, what other option is left to the citizens to trust this government? That's the million-dollar question right now. Now, going forward, we are witnesses. The Americans have what they call the 9/11. You are aware?
Yes.
You know that every time it is 9/11, the Americans come out in their numbers with flowers and what have you to, resurrect the memory, to honor that these persons wouldn't have died. To strengthen efforts to stop international terrorism. Here in Nigeria, if you want to reduce it to our locality here, this lawful, peaceful protest, as the Constitution also provides, it beholds the government, it is the government's legal duty, anytime citizens want to embark on lawful protest, to provide security. That security practically means protecting and guiding the protestants. In other words, you should even exhaust all available options to be talking with, you should deepen dialogue with the organizers, not just being reactionary, listening to unfounded fear and suspicion by handlers of their principles in government and say, no, this will be. That is one very, unpalatable and very unnecessary culture we have developed. Anytime Nigerians want the first thing you hear is to be hijacked, then what is the essence of government? The same law says that the government in such a situation where citizens, and come to think of it, the essence of the protest is to, resurrect the memory, is to honor
Yes.
and also further deepen the efforts of the government to check the excesses of police brutality and what have you.
Okay,
Now, you want to fault it.
Pat, let me come in there. I
Okay.
like the fact you mentioned that the essence of this protest is to
Yes.
bring to bear most of the misdemeanor of the police. Again, if we are saying the federal government should provide security for them to carry out lawful protests, who are they protesting against? Is those who are going to give them the security as they have them march.
No, clearly that fight is done in democratic constitutional democracies. That is what it means by the essence of the government is to provide security and welfare. This is a typical example of it. The nature of what they want to place, there's nothing wrong about that. People lost their life untimely and unduly and illegally for that matter. So what in the first place they came out with was something that was unconstitutional, that police will take, there will be extrajudicial killings for whatever reason, if you have suspects or if you have reasonable reason to apprehend suspects or whatever. The law says that you bring them before the courts. And as also they are presumed to be innocent. But here we witnessed in Nigeria where the police will be the prosecutor, the judge, and the prisoner. That is not what the law says. So that's what Nigerians are trying to draw the attention of the government. That, look, we cannot continue in this kind of banana republic where we have double standards.
Yes.
Like look at the George Floyd case. I'm sure we all now. I think the white officers, I think they are serving their terms. That's a society that believes that the power belongs to the people. We saw the protest to the extent for the first time statutes that depict slavery across different countries. You are brought down to mark the end of racial discrimination. The same thing if you reduce that theory to Nigeria here now. It's the same thing we're talking about. There has been too much of abuse of power. By those in government and their agents.
Let's look at it from this perspective. Okay. Let's assume to agree with the president that because of the security situation in the country, killings here and there, kidnappings here and there, let's try to maybe reason with the president. But let's look at it from the perspective. Has the issue raised been resolved? Have we found solution to the issue raised? And one of the most pertinent issues that gave rise to the Endsars protest 2020 was police brutality. Have the police changed in their conduct? After that massive
I just pointed out that yes, that's what I'm saying.
36 states, youth across the 36 states mobilized themselves, took to the street without a coordinator. They were on the street ranting their anger. The question we should ask, have the police actually changed their attitude and habit towards apprehend the people, unlawful detention, throw people behind bars without investigation or interrogation, use POS to collect money without all of those things, have those things changed?
Interesting. You just took it out of my mouth. That's exactly the second level of what this time around protest seeks to achieve, beyond just memorizing the memory, and it is to also draw the attention. And all of our democratic societies, that is one very legal instrument or option left to the citizens. That because nothing has changed, that since after the last incident, there seems to be no considerable change on the part of the police. Therefore, this protest seeks to draw the attention of government at all levels, particularly federal government, because the last time we checked, the police is under this control. We just have a police that is controlled by the federal government. We're yet to have state police. In spite of the governor's called chief security officers, legally they have no powers to command the police formations. So that question you ask now is the second chief reason for this current protest. That clearly, and you don't expect people to take up arms and start shooting at the government. The only way, the legal and lawful way they can do it is to protest. And look, federal government, it is clear to us that you seem to have lost sight that nothing has changed. There are no punitive measures. Nobody has been brought to book. Nobody has been held responsible. Nobody has taken responsibility for what went wrong and is still going wrong. Therefore, as a government, as a system of government where power belongs to the people, this is our way of exercising our power. This is another way of we being as stakeholders being able to participate. It is the government that will encourage citizens to participate. How else do you want them to participate? It is illegal to take up arms. They couldn't have done that. So the only legal option open to them is to peacefully march. Because a lot of gatekeepers will not let them access those in power. Like as I was reading in between the lines, I overheard the president saying this. What other option is left as long as the Nigerian factor is concerned? Is it the option that all of them who are in power go about with reaching of police officers wielding AK-47? That if they meet even the organizers of this group and they attempt to say, please, Honorable Minister or Your Excellency, please, I have this to say. And because they are pointed nozzles, several guns are wielding everywhere, nozzle pointing at them, they won't even have the courage to raise their hands. That's why it's called assault rifle. Assault in law means it's criminal. It's an offense. So if it's even wrong in the first place, in a democratic society, you find civilian government officials going about the written of police officers, right, pointing guns at unsuspecting citizens. So how else, in that kind of situation, can the citizens freely express whatever is pressing in their minds? No. So if this is the possible and necessary option, so be it. And in this situation, it still beholds on the government to dialogue with the organizers to ascertain the level of how they are going to, separate them from hoodlums or whoever that wants to hijack it. And I'm sure, like, even though I am of the opinion, organizers can even go, they can have marshals that will hold their hands like form a human shield, use hands to form a human shield, so that they can separate anybody that wants to take undue advantage and to say, oh, in the name of I want to register my presence in Endsars protest. Let me go and do this. No. Then the government on that part now complement the efforts of that human shield by the protest organizers. But now as we're talking, you are not surprised to hear that as we are talking, the writing after that meeting now and even before the next meeting, is the government, if they are responsible and responsive enough, are they not supposed to have invited the organizers? Are we not supposed to see that fundamental element in democracy that encourages dialogue instead of war? Can't they for once introduce a culture of dialogue anytime this kind of things wants to happen? Is it not 1 year now? As intelligent as with due respect to Vice President, he's a professor of law. Does he not know the implication of the law in situations like this? It is for once. Let Nigerians believe that this country belongs to all of us. We are not second-class citizens. This is one of the things those who have come before us and laid their lives and lived and died for.
Let's talk about the panel of inquiries that was set up to look into the demands of the youth and of course fund for compensation to compensate youth that have been brutalized. How will you rate them so far? I don't really see so much done in Rivers State because the last time I checked, they said they are done with the investigation. And of course, the Lagos panel of inquiries, I saw video clips of where some persons were given compensation. But let's look at their rating. How well have they performed? And again, all of the investigation carry that. How useful do you think it will change the pains and plights and grievances of the youth?
Well, if you ask me, Flora, the rating, I doubt, as how the Lagos incident and few cases, there is even what form of compensation? We're talking about human life. Of course, in human theory, there is no amount of material wealth that can be equated to one human life. But going forward, in the spirit of reconciliation, the aspect of the investigation that Nigerians will be more interested in is those who deliberately, for no reason, because of overzealousness or they want to exercise show of power or intimidation or feel that some people are second-class citizens in this country, can't the panel recommend their prosecution? And if they actually found to be the ones who responsible to have pulled the trigger that cut short the life of Nigerians in their prime, and we see the person made to face the music. Just as the ordinary armed robber that is caught to have killed his victims. And the law says you are hereby sentenced to death. Yes! We should begin to see that. That level of compensation on the mind of the victim and the families of the victim will go a long way to sway them and to begin to trust the government. But if you say the compensation, even to the extent that involves somebody that have died, a number of people that were killed, and you're telling me that the family of the victim should just come and take 1 million and 2 million, I tell you, Flora, we are still a million miles far from the kind of justice. Because in criminal law, anytime you're talking of justice, it's tripartite. Justice to the victim, justice to the family of the victim, justice to the poor, justice to the government, to the state. So if you are looking at it as if it's a charity thing, because people are crying that they lost their loved ones, so come and take 2 million naira. I tell you, Flora, it has not gone anywhere to. It is still the culprits, the human beings who actually, for no reason, for no good reason, cut short their lives. And the law says anybody who does that, this is a consequence. That is what we want to see. And how long will it take? But we can see 30 criminals here and there. Just really, they soon take more than 3 weeks. The court have concluded, and you hear things like we hereby sentence you to death. So now that it has involved government agents and the guys of security operatives, why is it taking as long as the coming of Christ, so to speak?
According to the spokesperson of the vice president, said prosecution of police personnel indicted in the panel of inquiries are on the way. Well, quite unfortunate, we've not seen any lists. Neither have we heard of any names. Or
exactly.
Like what you said,
even the police personnel, also the army, like for instance, at the Lekki toll gate.
Lekki toll gate shootout.
Yes, in fact, at the point we saw that back and forth argument between the military hierarchy and the Lagos State governor, that in itself is an indictment on the part of the federal government. Because the law did not say, there is nowhere in the Nigeria as amended that the governor is the commander-in-chief.
Yes.
So how could the military hierarchy then come out to tell the whole world that they were commanded by the Lagos State governor, only for him to deny the next second? Until now, nobody has been prosecuted. In other words, it clearly shows that that movement was illegal from the beginning. Therefore, the army personnel that were involved in that shooting and killings, they then said even experts found the bullets at the scene of the crime and confirmed that they were bullets owned by the military. So it's not just the police. Is it not shocking that till now no military personnel have been brought to book?
Yeah.
So that is a depth of the kind of justice. Those who want to embark on this protest now have been waiting tirelessly, patiently, and nothing seemed to come forth. And they feel that, okay, now there is almost an anniversary. Let them use the opportunity to remind the government again that, look, we hope that just Nigeria, that one part of, in fact, all these other violent crimes now that they want to give us excuse not to even encourage this one. It is on to the absence, it is straight to the absence of justice.
Okay,
yes.
the part, let's not forget the resultant effects of the Endsars protest. We saw people's shops being broken, and of course we saw